Thomas Wooden Railway will not return. Yeah. This is a little video I would one day love for everyone to come back to and comment just how wrong I was. 5 years from now, I'd love to click on this video, scroll down, and read a bunch of comments just stating how poorly this video has aged. That'd actually be pretty nice. It kinda sucks making a video with this title. For one, I own a lot of Wooden Railway, and I want to collect more. And if the knowledge that the line is truly dead and never coming back gets even bigger, that'll put a huge target on all the stuff and make everything more expensive than it already is, so that'd suck. Okay, no one look for Nelson, I am looking for Nelson. And for two, and what's probably bigger than my own personal toy collecting, I suppose, is that about 10 years ago or so, it was hard to believe that this would ever be the case. Wooden Railway felt untouchable. I mean, this was one of the most popular quotes about the toy line.
For over 20 years, the Thomas Wooden Railway has continued to put smiles on millions of children throughout the world.
For context, that was a clip from former Thomas YouTuber Jay Louvier and his review/discussion series Character Friday. And that was the intro sequence in all those videos. It was a big deal back then, and it also became a bit of a meme in that era of Thomas fandom. And back when he did those, you can make a video saying his catchphrase, "Every Friday is a Character Friday." And when I was 11, I sent in one of me saying the iconic line with my camera pointed at my wooden train set. And this was the first email I ever sent anyone ever. So every Friday I watched, eagerly hoping I'd make an appearance. But it never happened. I always wondered if, maybe he hated me or something. Well, a couple years later, around when he stopped doing the series regularly, I watched what I sent him, and I realized I had sent him the wrong take. Here it is.
Friday's a Character Friday. That sucked.
Yeah, that was the whole thing. I felt so embarrassed by this when I realized. I'm sorry for wasting your time, Jay Louvier. Please don't be mad at me. Anyways, that was a tangent, but moral of the story, Wooden Railway's longevity became a major part of its identity. Started in 1992, TWR was one of Thomas's first major toy lines ever. Wooden trains are a concept which is probably as old as trains themselves. I mean, the first iteration of Thomas ever conceived was a wooden train. Being a kids franchise, Thomas having wooden push-along trains just made sense. TWR chugged along for years. There were redesigns and some changes when the hands of ownership would be switched, but it all stayed in the system. The system is really what made TWR work best. The Thomas branded sets could be expensive, but luckily there were loads of other wooden train manufacturers with compatible track and play features. Brands like Brio, Hape, Melissa and Doug, and really any others. Thomas pretty much came into their system. It felt respectable. While the Thomas branded stuff had their own general design style, it's all compatible and fits the rails of all these major systems that predate it. And the best part is that the track is compatible. What's really nice about being a Wooden Railway fan is that you can go on Amazon or wherever and buy a big pack of track. While majority of track doesn't have the printed detail, it's more than what you'd get in something Thomas branded. This is something that the motorized and diecast guys just don't get with all the redesigns, and they're not really being a popular generic compatible option. It was a really nice thing about Wooden Railway. Haha, welp, until they tried to change that. At year 26, this thing called Thomas Wood happened. Still, a Wooden Railway existed, but to be blunt, this whole thing felt like a middle finger from the corporation. Most of you probably know about this. They didn't paint the engines at first, thinking it'd show off that they were in fact made of wood, which was a criticism the line had faced pretty much its entire run ever since they changed the funnels from wood to plastic. And the critique had been majorly amped up over the years and had even gotten worse under Mattel's control. And boy, this change sure did help the reputation of the line and Mattel as a whole. Maybe the choice to not paint the engines was truly just a misguided attempt, but they changed the track for some reason. Do you see the quotations I'm making with my claw hands? This just felt like an attempt to isolate Thomas Wooden Railway and break the system so that way they could have their own to profit off of and not have to share with the off-brand stuff. This, of course, did not work at all, because no one bought these sets because they were still too expensive, and not to mention no one wanted these crappy trains that came with them. After a year into Thomas Wood, they painted up the exposed parts in an attempt to salvage this rebrand. From there, the line went pretty much quiet. They did Edward, Henry, and Toby, which was likely a way to try and appeal to older fans, and they also put out Etienne? Who? And other than that, there were pretty much no new engines outside of the annual Day Out with Thomas exclusive. And Kenji, who only came out in Japan for some reason. Okay. They didn't even release the rest of the engines they had planned, such as Flying Scotsman, Bow, and others. So there wasn't really a proper wooden railway to coincide with the last 2 years of the series. Not like anyone would have lined up for a Wood, Sunny, Cleo, or I don't know, who's in these episodes? Gustavo, I guess? Stefano? Regardless, these were unprecedented times. Which also lined up with me getting back into wooden railway. Why'd I do that? That was like the worst time. With the original show ending in 2020, Thomas Wood went with it. Everyone assumed there'd be an all engines go wooden line to carry the flame, but it just didn't happen. Instead, sometime in 2021, a front-facing image of a seemingly wooden Thomas popped up. And in 2022, Thomas Wooden Railway was reborn. Now, I talked about this reboot a lot in my collection video, so I won't spend too long here, but in short, this didn't do so well. While the track returned and the engines were actually made with a lot of new details and effort put behind them, it just didn't take off. For one, it was still too expensive. For two, there was really nothing to draw people in. It was just new versions of the characters most people already had. You got a couple characters who were only in wood, like Nia, Rebecca, and Kenji, and the redesigns were interesting in a good way, but there was just really no reason to go through and buy them all, unless you just wanted to be a completionist. Or if you were someone who was getting into wooden railway. But again, expensive. I think those new wheels hurt the line the most. It made them stand out way too much. They just didn't fit in with the old stuff that'd been around for over 20 years. Really, the only TWR fans buying them were buying them to collect or to customize. And again, after launch, there were pretty much no new releases. In 2025, production ceased, and Thomas Wooden Railway has been slowly fading away. All the engines are pretty much gone, and all those sets are just kinda lingering on online stores, because they're still so expensive. And that's the story of how Wooden Railway ended. I'm betting a lot of you, or maybe even all of you watching, already knew that though. So the bigger question is, what's stopping a return? While Mattel fumbled with the last two iterations, the line is still mega popular with people buying it secondhand. Why couldn't Mattel just make a new Wooden Railway? And, well, they totally could. Like I said, this isn't a fact. I believe the confirmed official rumor going around now is that Mattel has absolutely no plans to make a new Wooden Railway by themselves. If there ever were to be a new Wooden Railway, it'd be a collaboration that would be spearheaded and manufactured by a separate company that does wooden toys. Which honestly makes complete sense. From very early on in their ownership, you could tell they were not a fan of having a wooden toy line at all. They loved using plastic. Straight out the gate with their ownership, they turned the bogies on the bigger engines plastic. So right from the gate, you got the vibe that they had issues with taking on a wood-based product. And it just got more ridiculous. The backlash to them using plastic was immediate and huge. It was the driving force behind the Sodor Story Collection sets that began in 2014, the second year of Mattel's ownership. This was a series of sets that came with books, and also introduced the Wooden Railway original characters Logan, Sam, and Dustin. And even though these sets were apparently made to bring Wooden Railway back to wood, they still had a lot of plastic in them anyways. Like this smelter's bucket thing in the Sam set, it's all plastic except for the little slab at the bottom. Seriously, what happened here? Even under the guise of making a more wooden toy, they couldn't keep it up. Plastic and Wooden Railway just felt inevitable. These pressures for less plastic, more wood are of course also what led to the wood reboot, which judging by how simplistically designed everything was, again you can clearly tell Mattel just did not care to make unique wooden engines. So yeah, if there ever was a new Wooden Railway, it's definitely for the best that another toy company pitches in to make it. Clearly, the current rights holders do not care for TWR conceptually. Which is fair, I guess. I'm glad this has maybe been said by Mattel themselves. I'd rather they admit defeat than try and fail miserably. So the question is, will there ever be a day a new Wooden Railway comes along? Well, in my humble opinion, no. No company is coming to make a new Wooden Railway, nor will Mattel ever take up that mantle again. At least for the foreseeable future. Why? Well, it's already been replaced. For the longest time, there was always conversation about the Thomas toy lines and cross-compatibility. There were three kinds of Thomases to buy: wooden railway, a die-cast line, and a motorized line. TWR kept the same name up until wooden 2018, but the other two went through iterations. Tomy Motor Road and Rail was the main motorized line for Thomas stuff, which then everywhere but in Japan became Trackmaster. And then in 2020, they dropped the Trackmaster name and it just became simply known as the motorized line. The diecast lines went from the Ertl-produced stuff, then into Take Along, then Take and Play, then Adventures, then it became Trackmaster Push Along, and which then just became the generic Metal Collection line once the Trackmaster name went. Yeah, being a diecast Thomas fan must be rough. As fans, it's easy to figure out because we are in fact fans. But honestly, from an outside perspective, man, this must be so complicated. Speaking from personal experience, I know my parents had next to no clue there were differences in the kinds of Thomas toys they bought me. I'm very sure they had an idea that there were wooden Thomases and of course motorized Thomases. I mean, somebody had to put those batteries in when I was 4, right? But I don't think it ever clicked with them that all the Thomas toys weren't compatible. You could put wooden trains on motorized track, but you couldn't couple them up together. And the diecast stuff, well, you could kinda couple it up to the wooden ones since they were both magnets, but it didn't fit the wooden or motorized track. Yeah. Most toy lines, especially ones with vehicles, typically only have one type of thing to collect. Pixar Cars, for example, is pretty much predominantly one scale. They have a mini diecast line and of course one-offs like RCs and bigger talking toys you can get, but it's clear there's a main Cars line you buy into and collect all the characters for. Thomas didn't really put any toy line above any of the others. For most stores, they had a pretty even spread of motorized and diecast and some wooden railway as well. But TWR evolved to become its own class as a premium toy line, something you'd predominantly see at a fancier store like Barnes & Noble or Toys R Us. But that didn't really stop TWR's popularity too much. Throughout the years, there was still this want for cross-compatibility. I definitely remember a lot of Thomas toy review videos pointing that out. And I'm very sure this is what led to the creation of the Superstation. This combined everything at the time. It's a concept which makes sense, and I believe it sold pretty well. But there's something that's always bothered me about this, and it's just how it looks. It's not really a representation of something from Thomas, it just vaguely looks like locations from the show. It's more of a set about the toys. There's nothing that gives it any value outside of being the place to bring together all your toys. I don't hate it, but it's just not a piece of Thomas merch history I care too much about, even if it's a pretty big one. It's the Avengers team-up of Thomas toys, except it's this era of Thomas toys that absolutely blow. It's undeniable it does symbolize something big, though. It was Thomas's big move to a homogeneous toy line. Diecast stuff changed its coupling system and expanded its wheelbase to run on the same rails as motorized stuff, which was already the same width as wooden railway. They could all fit on the same track now, except now wooden railway was the odd one out, using magnets instead of plastic hook couplings. Things remain the same across the All Engines Go reboot. They just adapted that rebrand style to the motorized and diecast stuff as they were. Then in this year, 2026, things changed. I don't think anyone expected this. With the reboot of Thomas, they decided to send both motorized and diecast to have wooden railway style magnets. This choice has been controversial for the most part, which I completely get. Diecast hasn't had magnets since 2016 when it was Take and Play, and the magnets on motorized completely alienates the new stuff from literally everything before. I did appreciate the fact you can make infinitely long trains with the hooks, but in my opinion, I prefer the magnets, at least for the diecast. I think the ease of coupling is better. It is sad that the motorized stuff is now not compatible with all the old, but I think the magnets are a better decision, and making the two lines compatible was gonna be inevitable. I'm mostly positive about this new merchandise. It's miles better proportion than the stuff they were making prior to All Engines Go. With how well it's been flying off shelves, yeah, I think it's gonna stick around for a bit. Which now brings me back to the thesis of this video. I believe this has sealed the deal on Wooden Railway returning. As in, it's not going to. These new toys are compatible with Wooden Railway. They can run on the same track and the magnets go the same way. The only issue is the scale, especially with the motorized stuff. But the diecast stuff, it's close enough. It's not like they really care about the scaling anyways, just look at these YouTube videos they make. They have the wider motorized rolling stock on the diecast engines, and that just kinda looks ridiculous. But regardless, all the trains now connect and they all fit on the same rails. I don't think they randomly decide to go back to these big round magnets. It's not to be harkening back to Take and Play 2014. I mean, they don't even go the same way. To me, it's pretty clear this is their attempt to unite with one of the most sought after Thomas toys on the secondhand markets. The one that made all the classic characters for over 20 years. I don't see this stuff as a replacement of TWR, but more of a method to fill that void for kids. Toys are expensive and can be hard to find. And in this age of Facebook Marketplace, yeah, kids today are going to have a lot more than just the toys that are on shelves right now. And I think this is a smart idea. However, I still, of course, will miss Wooden Railway. It's sad that the constant existence of TWR is no more. And this will be a little sappy, but TWR was simple. So it has a very strong community of custom makers, and also a very wide amount of filmmakers too. So for that reason, I don't think TWR will ever truly fade away. And in recent news, the name Rickety was recently trademarked for Thomas. Rickety is a Wooden Railway original character, made up for being a troublesome truck who sways back and forth in a rickety motion. Who knows what this could mean, but perhaps in some way, it seems that the legend of TWR will live on. Okay, that was a great video, wasn't it? Anyways, thanks for watching this, and thank you to my Joe Swanson tier patrons, Aquamarina, Forgotten Lol Cow, Low, and the Goat Train. Thanks, guys, and thank you to all my patrons, too. This video was actually voted on by them. Did you know that if you're in my Patreon, you support this channel, and particularly you support me making episodes of the show, the series that I make, and then you get your name in the video, and you get to look at stuff on there. Did you know that? Alright, but seriously. I'm kind of locking back in on videos. I got some crazy ideas, and I'm going like full force in making them until I can't. We'll get to that day when it comes. Alright, goodbye forever. I hope the Trackmaster fandom isn't mad I said I like the magnets. Like, I get that's like, I get that kind of sucks for a Trackmaster fan.